Okay, welcome back, everybody. Welcome to 2026 in the Reading Online Sports Economics Seminar Series. It is a great pleasure to kick off the series for the year with a talk by Alessandro. Sure, I forget your name. Mattia. There you go. I didn't want to get your name wrong, Alessandro. Always got to be careful. Who's going to present forfeit or not forfeit, the impact of round robin format on effort provision evidence from beach volleyball. Before Alessandro gets going, there's a few administrative notices that I stuck in the reminder as well. So they're there hopefully for you for your potential use. One that's coming up very imminently is on Sunday. That is the abstract submission deadline for the first Central Asian Conference on Sports Science, which is in Tashkent in Uzbekistan. That is being organized. Alex Kremer on the call and myself are on the organizing committee for that, along with Dmitry Dragiev, who many of us will be familiar with. It promises to be a very interesting conference in a relatively new part of the world for certainly, I think, sports economics and sports science more broadly. There's a link to a website if you go to the reminder. Abstract submission deadline on Sunday for that, and that conference is at the end of April. And then also coming up before we meet again next week on January the 30th, there's an abstract submission deadline for the Political Studies Association Sport and Politics Conference taking place up at the University of Liverpool. And the information there is an abstract to be submitted by Friday to Jeff Walters, who is a professor at the University of Liverpool. And also just say that there is a slight change in the previous advertised schedule. Georgi Shkailov, even from Michigan, will present next week rather than the week after. That's enough for me. Just to finally say we are sponsored kindly by the Sports Economics Review. And Alessandro, are you happy to take questions as you go along, or would you prefer?
No problem with that. Yes.
Okay. So if you want to ask a question of Alessandro, raise your hand, and if he's not able to see you, I'll interrupt him on your behalf. So Alessandro, all yours.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Let me see. Can you see my screen?
Yes, but one slide 34.
Yes, it's visible.
Okay, let's start from the beginning.
Perfect. Yep.
Let me see if I can. Okay, I will just keep like. Okay, thank you. So thank you, James, for the introduction, and as always for presenting these interesting weekly seminars. And of course, thank you everybody to be here with me. I hope I will make you entertained for this hour or so. So as James already said, the title is of my paper in collaboration with my supervisor, Alex, that is here with us, is forfeit or not forfeit, the impact of round-robin format on effort provision. And we analyze beach volleyball settings. So the outline of my presentation will be the usual. So I will start with my motivation and research question. Then we will try to understand the context and the settings where the paper is settled. We'll display some data and descriptive statistics. We will get into the empirical strategy to claim some causal relationship. And then we'll have some robustness check, maybe some extra descriptive statistics that might support or give further details on our main results. And then we will conclude with the implication of the paper. Sorry. So I think it's quite redundant, or it's quite, let's say, clear to everybody that nowadays, the main international sports organization and federation are expanding their tournaments design formats. This can usually be done by increasing the number of teams or expanding the number of matches. So we have many examples. We have, the most, I try to report the most famous from the main sports follower, I think, by the audience. So in Champions League and FIFA, we have experienced in the recent years an expanded format with more teams and also more rounds. This is also the case of NBA in basketball. They have introduced I'm not really familiar with NBA, but I know that they have introduced like a playoff before the playoff, some extra games to decide the specific standings for the 7 and 8 place team. And as we have seen in the first paper I published with Alex, there was an expansion in the EuroLeague, so in Europe in basketball, where the formats follows similar to what has been done in Champions League, so an expanded format, and they are keep increasing the number of teams also in these years. The same is in tennis, that is a sport I'm more familiar with. There have been an expansion of Master Thousands, that is one of the most prestigious categories in tennis. We had a new tournament in Saudi Arabia, and also some other tournaments like in Rome. They have extended the number of teams taking part into the qualification. Similarly, in ice hockey, next season they will introduce more games in NHL. So I think it's quite obvious to say that if there is opportunity to make more profit and to have, a more offer, the sports is trying to take it. But of course, this, raise some concern. We cannot just add matches and new teams without taking into account the consequences. This has an effect on players' welfare, their physical performance, and also their injury risk rate. This has been heavily emphasized by the FIFA Pro lately. And of course, I think it's really important to acknowledge that this offer has to be constrained, because we are, of course, dealing with professionals that are really well paid, but still they are humans. So proposing calendars like we experience in Serie A or in the Premier League, where players have to play every 2 days, it is getting really congested and crowded, the calendar. So we had to think better ways to propose new tournament design that are at the same time captivating or attractive, but they can also preserve, the physical and the mental security and the safety of the players. This can also be, of course, detrimental for competitive integrity, because it does not necessarily mean that if we have more games, the quality of the games will be always as high as played by fresh players. So this can also be detrimental for how competitive the teams and the players can be if they play longer and more games. And of course, this induces players to try to strategize. So they try to adopt strategic behavior. So here I reported a tennis example. If you have noticed, Sinner has opted out of the Davis Cup in I think October, November, at the end of the season, because he was trying to prioritize the new season with the Australian Open that is taking place right now. And the same did Alcaraz, even if it was for small injuries. But they decide to not give too much credit to the national competition. And of course, this has a big media impact, because some Italian journalists, they claim that was not fair and was Sinner's duty to represent Italy in the competition. Despite we won anyway, because we have a really good team right now, but this is another, stories. So yeah, players try to understand what's the best way to maximize their visibility and their profit and their performance in a crowded calendar. Okay, so this has also a lot to do with effort, because if we have more matches and more teams, players has to learn how to manage their effort in a match. And so in our paper, we model effort as, of course, a costly option, because putting more effort is costly, and is forward-looking in the sense that players decide how to manage and use the effort at their disposal, starting from the present, and try to have a long shot on the following match they are going to take place. And of course, effort depends on the continuation values. That mean basically how big is the difference between winning a match or losing a match. Because if the difference is big, so what I gain from winning a match is much more valuable than what I lose, of course I will exert more effort. If this difference is really low, I will not have much incentive to exert effort. So there are a lot of course, empirical papers that shows how efforts change and also decrease when we face irrelevant matches, when teams fight for relegation and they are discouraged by their position, they are standings. And also this can also be related to Alex and Olad's study, how can also be related to corruption. So in some more corrupted countries, it's easier maybe to have incentives that goes beyond the relegation system. So I think that effort is even more important when we think about round robin tournaments, or when we have repeated match in a given time. Because if you think at knocked out stage, so if we have a match where if you win, you move on, and if you lose, you are knocked out of the competition, bless you. You will try to exert, it's a plausible assumption to say that you will try to exert the maximum of your effort, because if you don't, and if you not maximize the probability of you winning, you will be out of the competition. So unless you didn't want to take part in the competition, it's really rational to do so. But in round robin formats, the situation is more complicated, because you have maybe 3 rounds. So maybe you have incentives to differentiate the apport of effort, the amount of effort that you take in every matches. And so I've been shown in the literature review, in the literature that usually early results affect later incentives. That means that the early you win, the more likely is that then you have less incentive to exert a lot of effort in later stages, because you place yourself in a better position compared to teams that maybe didn't want at the beginning, and so they have to at the end of the group stage. There are inefficiency in the tournaments structure, so final matches can also become irrelevant, as we have seen in Fael and Saur, and Salto wrote a lot about inefficiency in the tournaments structures. This can generate strategic withdrawal, so many teams can decide not to exert effort in specific matches. Manipulation, so teams cooperate in order to understand how to reduce the effort in order to benefit from results that can be not the one we expect if the teams exert full effort. And this indirectly, of course, affect the attractiveness of the competition, because if you watch a match that we know that the both teams have not full incentive to exert effort, we expect that maybe, if 2 teams just pass the ball and they're okay with drawing 0-0, we know that this can be detrimental for the attractiveness of the competition. Our paper also relate to another strand of the literature that we think is quite important, especially in Nordic country right now, because we are experiencing this a lot, that is absenteeism and sick leave. So we have many situations where people take advantage of being paid for staying at home or being paid because they are sick. And this phenomenon is called, of course, absenteeism. So when individual optimally reduce effort or participation. And there are like many papers that shows that when the job protection or the benefits are really generous and are really safe, like might happen in Norway, it is a rich country, at least like if we look at the social welfare, there are incentives to, to deviate from what you're supposed to do, that is working and going to work. And this also, on the other hand, decrease when absence become more costly. So if you put like some rules that manage you to be controlled and to register maybe how much you work and how effective it is, of course, they cut off this incentive to deviate from your work. So absence is often a strategic response to incentives and might not be all entirely driven by health issues or reason you are allowed to take advantage of when you call for an absence leave or a sick leave. So, of course, this mechanism closely relates to the behavior in tournaments. So if we show that there is incentives to deviate and to take advantage from these inefficiencies in tournaments design, can also be reconduced to, let's say, human behavior in other settings like this one. So what is the main question we ask in this paper? Is thus reducing the number of group matches reduce strategic withdrawal, not effort, as measured by forfeit? So we are going to see like how forfeit was given in an international beach volleyball competition, how the number of forfeit evolved over time after a change in the tournament designs occurred. And so we want to see if the change in these tournaments designed affect the likelihood, the probability of a team forfeiting due to strategic reason. So we took advantage from a natural experiment. So the FIB, we just published a paper that is discussing the same issues, but then there we study more the fairness and the efficiency of this competition. But I will try to refresh the main important information here. So the beach volleyball international organization has three main tournaments. One is the Olympic Games that occurs every 4 years. The second one is the World Championship that now occurs, I think, every 2 years, and before was every 4. And then you have the World Tour, where you have like different tournaments across the year in different countries, can be Norway, Switzerland, US, Brazil. So it's like, the World Tour in tennis, for example. And a main change in the tournament's design in the group stage occurred in 2017. So we went from a classical round robin with 3 matches per team to a reduced, we can call like a modified Swiss style tournaments with 2 matches per team. So here you can see the structure before the change. So we have like the qualifiers, and then you have the round robin that starts the elimination stage, where you have like 32 teams. And the group stage was made of 3 rounds. In the first day, you have like the teams ranked number 1 against the 4th, the second against the 3rd, and then in the remaining 2 the other 2 days you have the remaining combination. So every team faces each other's. At the end of the group stage, the first teams was ranked went directly to the round of 16, so got access to the round of 16s. The second and the third, they play a playoff that is a round before the round of 16 to get access. That was already elimination stage, so if they won that matches, they eventually advanced to the round of 16 where the first team were placed, and the first team was kicked out of the competition after a group stage. After the change, and in this case, we have noticed that there are some, we will see especially in round 3, there are like many matches that result as insignificant or where like effort, where like the position of the team was already secure. So there was no real incentives to play those games. On the other hand, when the tournament structures changed in 2017 and the number of rounds was reduced by 1/3, so from 3 to 2, this of course eliminated all the non-important matches, because if you play with the 2 rounds, every match is important. You play 2 games and every point matters in this case. So as we can see, they come up with this design where in the first round, the teams ranked number 1 faced the last one, the first, the second, the third, and then you have the 2 winners against each other and the 2 losers against each other. All the other information and all the other structure of the tournament remained the same. So we had qualifiers that have the same number of rounds. Round of 16 was the same, and also how teams managed to qualify were the same. So I will not like discuss much further the details of the tournament design and of the competition, but I will try just to focus on what is important for this paper. If you want more details, then you can go to read our paper that is already published in the Annals of Operational Research. So what is really important here, since we are going to analyze forfait and retirements, is to have a distinction of what is forfait and retirement. So in our data, forfait means that a team does not show up in the match. So the match resulted in teams not playing. So the result was 0-2 for the winner, and in the number of so the number of games was 0-2, and the number of points was 0-21, 0-21. So in this case, these of course also affect the tie breaking, because how do you classify the teams in the group stage? You use first how many match they won or they lost. Then if they are tied, you look at the ratio between number of sets won and lost, and then you look at the number, if the teams are still tied, you look at the number of total points won against the total points lost. So of course, losing 0-2, 0-21, and 0-21 is a big negative effect on your tie-breaking criteria. Retirement, on the other hand, means that a team starts playing, but somehow during a match they decide to retire. So most likely for injuries. From regulation, it can also be disqualification, but it's really unlikely that the teams got disqualified, but usually because the teams got injured or decide to give up in the match, they are classified as retired. And in this case, the match results records all points already played, and the remaining 7 points are awarded to the one who did not retire. So as I said, our sample period is considered like 3 seasons before the change, so 2014, 15, and 16, and 3 seasons after, 2017, 18, and 12. We collect data from this website bvbinfo.com, where we have all the match scores of the World Tour, if a team forfeit and retires, and then we scrape the information on the team's ability, so how were their entry and 6 points at the beginning of the tournament from the official website of the FIB. This is how many data, I mean, there is a question, I think, from Stefan. I can take the question now. Yes.
Hi, Alessandro. Yes. So sorry, I just wanted to be clear on what a forfeit is. So
yeah,
a forfeit means that if you forfeit a game, you're not eliminated from the tournament as a whole. So if you win your first 2 games, are those the only thing? Is that the only situation where a forfeit occurs, where you've won 2 games and then you decide not to play the third? Is that the only situation in which?
No. We have forfeits in every round. So I don't know if we will have time to present the descriptive statistic of each round, but in each round you can forfeit. So you can forfeit in the first round and then play the second and the third. You can forfeit in the second round and play in the first and the third. So forfeit can occur in the group stage in any round. And then you don't receive a penalty. So if you forfeit in the first round, you can still play the second round. There is no any.
Okay, so forfeiting in the first round is very different strategy from forfeiting in the third round, right?
Yeah, of course, as we will see, where teams are more likely to strategize will be in the third round, because we have more information in the third round about the standings of the team compared to the first round. So if a team forfeit in the first round is most likely due to injury, or they didn't want to play, they thought was not better to play that match. If a team forfeit in the last round, is because or they already lost the opportunity to qualify, probably, or they already secured the opportunity to qualify. So as we will see, of course, there is a big difference, but formally a forfeit can occur in every round. Yes, I think I have another question. Yeah, I hope I replied. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for presentation. And I have a question. Do they in the new system somehow seed the first pairing, the first match pairings to avoid best pairs to play each other in the first match? Do they do the seeding in this new system?
So your question is if the seeding system avoid to pair the 2 best top seeds at the beginning of the group stage? This is your question?
Yes.
Yeah, you can look at the paper where we are published, but the way that we have already published. But yes, the group stage, I didn't went into many details because we already wrote the paper. But usually the first team seeded among the 32 taking part in the group stage is placed in the first group, and the second in the second group. So the way teams are seeded is in a such way that we have like balanced groups. So in the first group, usually have like the first team, I don't remember, like the number 9, then the number 17, and then the number 24, or something like that. And in the second group, we have the second seeded, the number 10. So you see, there is like the way that they are allocated in the group is like a serpentine. So they start from the first one and they place the top 8, one in each group, and they go so on. So there is like there are like balanced group. There is not like there will not be the opportunity to have like the first against the second seed in the group stage. Yeah. Okay. So I can go on. As I was saying, our total sample is 13,865 matches, and these are heavy, like equally distributed across the men's and women, because we have data on both men's and women and didn't say that. And also we will use both group stage, and then we also use qualification and the knockout stage for our robustness check. So as you can see, we have more or less 3,600 matches for both the group stage and the qualification plus the elimination stage for men. And similarly for women, we have 3,360 matches for the group stage and 3,200 for the qualification and elimination stage. Our outcome of interest, as I said, is the number of forfeits and retirements. So we have like overall 177 forfeits for men, 73 in the group stage, 47 in the women group stage, 29 in men's qualification and elimination, 28 for women. And retirements, as we can see, is a smaller number. So we have 45, 9 for men in the group stage, 13 for women in the group stage, 15 for men in qualification and elimination, and 8 for women in qualification and elimination. Now we'll present some descriptive statistics. So we will see from the table that the number of forfeit for men's drops from 68 out of 2,400, that is more or less 2.8% in the old format, to 5 out of 1,216, so it's 0.4% in the new format. Women's follow a similar pattern, so we have from 1.9% to 0.2%. And so we can see from these statistics that more than 90% of forfeit occur under the old format. Retirements, on the other hand, as we have seen, the number were smaller. The number of retired matches in men's increased from 0.1 to 0.5. Women went in the opposite direction. They decreased from 0.5 and 0.2. But we can say that retirements are extremely small and consistent, and probably they are really related to injury shocks in the matches, and there are no like real strategic incentives related to retirements. So as I said, men old format, as you see, is like 2.8%, the mean of forfeit rate, and retired rate is 0.1. This is the standard deviation. Forfeit rate can of course take, 0 if when a match was not forfeit, and 1 when the match was forfeit and retired as well. And then here we have the variables that we use in our estimation strategies, that are like the pre-treatment, control, and covariance that we use in our radius estimation matching. So we have entry points, that is the number of points of the winner of the match at the beginning of the tournaments. These are the number of the losers, seeds points for winners and loser. There are like a slight difference definition for the entry and seeds points that we have explained in the last paper, but both of them we can safely say that proxy the ability of the team at the current time. Then we have home advantage. That means if a team was playing at home or not. And qualification means if the winners or loser advance to the group stage through the qualification stage. So if a team play the qualification stage before the group stage, they have assigned a 1 flag with their dummy variables. And then we have the monetary price of the overall tournaments. So as I said, you see that this is after the formats. So the forfeit rate decreased to 0.4%. In this case, men's increased to 0.5. And yes, these are the descriptive statistics. The same for women. We went from 1.9 in the forfeit rate. And here the forfeit rate was reduced to 0.2. So this is the main takeaway that we want to show right now from these descriptive statistics. So, but of course, showing the statistic is not sufficient if we want to claim some causality in our findings, because participation under the new format is not random, since also because the federation expanded the number of tournaments, players and teams self-select themselves into competition. Then we have small differences in the prize money, the quality of the team change over time, and also the classification system of the tournaments change. Before they were like just 3 tiers, so we were like Grand Slams, Opens, and I don't remember the third name, and then it moved to like a 5-star system. So there are changes that we have to take into account and we have to control for in order to be causal. And of course, these cover rates are correlated with our treatment variable, that is the change of the formats. Otherwise, like comparing mean to mean will not be comparing apple to apple, and we will have bias estimation. So we use a propensity score estimation. We first run a logit model where our treatment variable was was taking value 1 if the format was the new format and 0 otherwise. And then we have like the dependent variable that was the probability of forfeiting in this case, and we also do with the retirements, of course. And then we have this list of cover rates at entry points, CDS points, home advantage, qualification, and monetary price. That is the one that we mentioned before in the descriptive statistic. Then we match treat and control games, so treated and untreated observation, with a caliber that is the standard use with the command radius matchings of plus minus 0.1. So this means that if conditional on the cover rates, we have a similar like propensity score, we match. So if 2 observation that one is treated and the other is not treated have a similar like overall propensity score value, we will match together. And we don't match 1-to-1 observation, but we use all observation that have a similar propensity score in the nearest neighbors, that is like the radius of 0.01. This to not have like observation that are too far away and some that are matches that are really close and other that are really far away, but just to have all the observation that are really close all together. Of course, is also distance weighted counterfactual outcomes. This means that the farther is the not treated observation, the less weight is put on that observation. If it's closer, the weight is higher. And then we will compute the average treatment effect. And we did that by following the paper that Lechner and Alex published in 2011, and on the estimation of on the relationship, I think on the relationship of public training on unemployment rate.
I wish I published this paper, but I wasn't there. It wasn't
okay,
me.
Sorry, Alex. Okay, it was before you went in the postdoc. Yes, okay. But you use the same estimation in your paper after this one.
Yeah, just one tiny correction. We use all the observations within the predefined radius and give different weights depending on the distance. Just one correction to what Alessandro said.
Thank you, Alex, for clarifying what I have said. So here I just reported like the logit estimation of all the data for MENS. That's just to have an idea to show that the coefficients are all highly significant. Of course, these are log odds, so they are not easy to interpret, but was just to see that if we look at the treat and untreated observation, we have like some substantial differences in the home advantage, in the qualification, in the entry point. So in our radius estimation, it's important to take into account these differences if we want to try to find the average treatment effect. So if we look at the tables of the average treatment effect for men, as you can see, when the sample includes all the rounds, we see that the probability of forfeiting under the new format was 0.02, so was 0.2%. And then, whereas before the change was 2.8%. So there was a decrease that is significant at 1% level of 2.6%. So the probability of forfeiting after the change decreased by 2.6%. When we take into account just round number 1 and 2, it's still significant on 0.8%. If we take just the observation on round 1, is not significant because, as probably Stefan was saying, in round 1, teams have not really incentive to forfeit because it's the first game of the round of the group stage. In round 2, the probability of forfeiting decreased by 1.2% after the change. When we look at women, the stories is quite similar. So decreased by 1.7% with all games, 1% when we take into account just round 1 and 2, so we don't take into account the round 3. Is not significant in round 1 and is significant at 5% level in round 2, and there is a decrease of 0.2%. Then what we did, we compare, since we thought that the round 3 was the most critical and where there is more space for strategic deviation, we compare the round 1 and 2 playing the new format, that are the only 2 rounds available, against the rounds 3 in the old format, and we have seen that in the 2 new formats there is a decrease in probability of forfeiting by 4.6%, whereas when we compare the first 2 rounds in the old format with the third rounds in the old format, the decrease in probability of forfeiting is still like high and is like 5%. The same for women, is 2.3% when we compare the new format with the old, and is 2% when we compare the old first 2 rounds with the old third rounds. So from this we can say that forfeit are heavily concentrated in round 3 under the old format, and that the formats leads to a large and statistically significant reduction in forfeit. And of course, this effect is stronger when the incentives are weakest, and this happens in round 3, because of course in round 3 you can have scenarios where maybe a team already won the first 2 games, so they have already secured a place for the qualification, for the elimination stage, and another team might have lost the first 2 games and be already mathematically out of the competition. So of course these partners are consistent with the strategic effort allocation of the model. So we see from the data what we would assume from a theoretical model. But there might be, alternative explanation. Someone could say the old format feature a longer and more congested group stage, since you were playing more games, teams were more exposed, and they would get more tired. And so increased fatigue increased the number of injury-related withdrawals and injury-related forfeit. So if this was the case, retirements should decline in the group stage after the reform. So if before the reform they were like longer format, we should see more retirements after. We should see more retirements before and less retirements after when the competition is shorter. And also forfeit retirements should decline in the qualification and in the elimination stage. Because if the group stage was longer, it might also affect the elimination stage afterwards. Also may have induced teams to retire and forfeit in the qualification stage, since they might have been tired, since they have been playing more games than after the change that the tournament design has fewer games. But as we've seen from the tables, we didn't find any significant change in retirement rates in the group stage. So the retirement rates remain the same before and after. And we didn't see any systematic effects of forfeit nor retirements in the qualification and in the elimination stage. So what we are claiming is how is possible that is likely due to injuries and fatigue if we just experience this change in the probability of forfeiting in the group stage, whereas in the qualification stage before and the elimination stage after the group stage, the situation remain unchanged. So as we can see, here is the number of retirements for men's, and you see the effect is there was an increase in the probability of retiring with the new format of 0.3%, but it's not significant. We just experience a small significant probability of retirement increase by 0.6% in the round 2 in the group stage for men. Here, no, wait. Yeah, the noise. Okay, no, was correct. Here we see the table for the retirements for men, as you can see, as we did a comparison before. So we have round 3 in the old format compared to the new rounds of the new formats, the first 2 rounds of the new formats. The effect is not significant in both cases. Whether we compare the last round of the old format to the first 2 rounds of the new, or we compare these last rounds of the old formats with the first 2 of the old formats. The same for women. We don't find any significant effect in all the rounds, in rounds 1 and 2, and in rounds 1 and 2. And the same here when we compare the first 2 rounds with the last rounds. So as we said, no significant change, no significant effect of format change. High stakes matches remain incentive compatible. So of course, in qualification and elimination stage, when forfeiting and retiring has no like strategic advantage, because if you retire, you're out of the competition, we don't experience any significant change. Yes. What is this? Yes, here is the same. We have the qualification elimination stage for the men. So in this case, we have the forfeit. If you see the number of forfeit with all the data, the effect was 0.2 and not significant. Where we just consider the forfeit in the knockout stage, the effect was not significant, and for retired as well. In all the data and in a knockout stage, no effect, no significant effect is recorded. The same for women. And here I just presented the last descriptive statistic that like zoom and put a focus on the round 3. So in round 3, since we have seen that in round 3 in the group stage is where is more likely to experience a probability of forfeiting, I wanted to split in the 3 different scenarios that might occur. So if a teams enter in round 3 with a 0-2 record, so they have lost the first 2 games, this has happened in our data set for men 9.3% of the time, and for women 4.5%. So most probably all of these cases reflect as you incentives to play by the team because they already lost the opportunity to qualify to the next stage. When the team enter in round 3 with a 1-1 record, we have just 1.7% of our sample size, and of these 80%, so 3 teams advance to the elimination stage. For women, we have just 8 cases, and of these 8 cases, I think 7 cases advance. So this means that we're really like tight situation in this case. And it's most likely that when they enter in a 1-1, most cases were like reported for injuries and fewer really strategic behavior in order to try to save energy, because with a 1-1 record you usually still have the opportunity to qualify but also to be kicked out. And when a team enter in the round robin with a 2-0 record, so they won the first 2, this happens 5.7% of the time in the men's sample size, and all of these cases advance to the elimination stages, and 9 out of 12 won the first knockout match. So of course, maybe this was a good strategic solution because they save energy in the last round, and that they play the first round in the elimination stage and they won. For women, the same is 3.7%, all advance, and only 2 won. In this case, just only 2 out of 7 won the first knockout match. But also here, I think is anyway a good story to see that the story can be that when there is like a 0-2 situation, so where you have lost the first 2 games in the round, you have a lack of incentive to exert extra effort in the last round. And on the other hand, when you have won the first 2 matches, there is evidence that teams try to save energy and try to not play the last round in order to be fresh for the elimination stage. For the qualification elimination stage, we see that the numbers are different. So forfeit retirements remain reimbursed format. So for example, in men's, you have qualification stage, we have 7 cases of forfeit, 5 before and 2 after. Elimination stage, we have like 9 before and 13 after. So overall, as you see, the number of forfeit when you merge the qualification elimination stage was 14 before and 15 after. That is almost the same, even if the number of observation is a little bit higher before the change. Retirements as well. We have 7 cases before and 8 afters, and their rates are really low. So in this case, we see that the number of forfeit and retirements before and after the group stage remains quite consistent. See, yes, this was for men, and this is from women, and it's basically the same stories. Yes, then the last slides, I just show that, for example, in men, we have 40 pairs of teams that forfeit in our sample out of all possible 287 pairs, and out of these 40, 31 forfeit 1. So it's most common that the team strategically forfeit 1, and just in few cases they forfeit more than once in the same tournaments. And most of these times I think was due for the injuries, because, for example, we have also a case where a team forfeit not in a group stage, but in the qualification, in the elimination stage, they forfeit twice. One in the semi-final and one when they had to play the bronze medal. And of course, this I think was a clear sign of being injured and not to strategically want to win the bronze medal. So in this case, we see that most pairs forfeit once and few forfeit consecutively in the same tournaments, and in this most likely due to injury. So conclusion, round robin formats with 4 teams, we have empirically tests that can generate strategic incentive to non-exert effort. So it's really important to reduce the number of low-stake games to mitigate this behavior. And I think in this case, forfeit are a clear indicator of strategic participation. So in these sports where we can clearly see when a teams want to exert effort or not by calling itself out, I think is a good empirical evidence. So implication, we know that strategic withdrawal emerge in low stakes group matches. But we claim that tournament design can mitigate these incentives ex ante. So there have been, of course, solution proposed, especially at Sato with dynamic scheduling. So adjusting when the teams face each other over the group stage, or choosing deliberately which opponents they are going to face, or changing randomly the tie-breaking system. These are all nice options, but we think that if we can ex ante reduce the number of non-important games by keeping the tournament design attractive anyway, playing the important matches, this can already be a good approach to try to not induce players to play matches that are detrimental for their performance and for the entertainment of the competition. Yes, I think this is all I have. So the final takeaway is more matches do not necessarily means better competition, but we should try to design tournaments in a way that preserve incentive, try to maximize effort, and also take care of the sustainability of the competition. Yes, so this is what I have. I thank you for the attention. I hope I was clear enough. And yes, that's it.
Thank you very much, Alessandro. I'm giving the teams a round of applause. It was a really interesting talk on strategic forfeiting. We've got lots of time for questions and comments. So if anyone does have any questions or comments they would like to ask, please do raise your hand and go ahead. Dennis.
Thanks, Alessandro. That is really interesting. I'm going to take my thoughts in reverse order of importance, and kind of in reverse order of which they occurred in your talk. So the title is strategic effort, but towards the end you referred to strategic participation, and throughout I was thinking this really makes more sense as strategic participation than strategic effort. To me, that's sort of a pedantic kind of a point, I think.
Yeah.
What I'm curious about, and this is probably not part of your story, is what's the effect of a third round forfeit on the standings of the remaining teams? So team has lost 2 matches, decides not to play the third match, forfeits. whoever they were going to play gets counted as a winner. How often does that change who goes through to the knockout round? That seems to me like it would be really interesting. And from the organizer's perspective, really something they would want to avoid. And then you kind of got at this at the end. This is the last question, is how often does a forfeit in one game follow from a retirement in the previous match? So there's an injury in match 2, so you forfeit in match 3 because in beach volleyball there's only 2 of you, and if one of them can't play, you're out. You're out. So how often does that happen? Obviously not very often because you have so few of them to begin with. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, I think as you said for the last question, we have the numbers, and of course, if a team, usually in the few cases the teams retire for one matches, especially if retires, if they have to play an extra match, they usually don't play, especially if it's in the elimination stage, because it means that they are injured. The effect of forfeiting in the last rounds, I think in most of the cases the effect was solely, but I can check this, it solely affect that particular matches, because it means that the other teams, they already have secured a place. I mean, the first team was already secured the place, first place, and the second and third were already sure to be in the playoff. So I think there are really few cases in where in round 3 a forfeit might have affect the other games in the rounds, but I will check that. Yeah,
well, let me follow up on that. So the second and third teams are in the playoffs, but isn't there some sort of a seeding that might be affected by this?
Yeah, I think they got seeded according to the position they have in the group stage. Yes, I think this can have small incentives, because more or less then they face similar opponents. But yeah, I will check that. I will check if there is like a real strategic incentive to be placed second or third, but I don't think so. But
Okay,
I will go to have a look on that. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Dennis. More questions and comments?
May I answer to Dennis?
You may.
Yeah, thank you. So thank you, Dennis. The thing with the challenge with your question is that we don't have the exact times of the matches in the last round. So we don't really know who plays in front of whom and whether they already know the result or not. That would really help us. But otherwise, we can only guess. So this is one of the challenges. And being second and third in the group, I think if I remember correctly, in the playoffs, they make a draw of all the teams all together, and they draw, so it doesn't really matter whether you finish second and third, which is a bit strange, but that's how they do.
Okay, thanks, Alex.
Thank you.
Okay, further questions and comments? Stefan.
So I guess my question is, I don't really understand why. I mean, is there any world in which it makes sense to forfeit if you only have 2 rounds before qualifying? What is I understand the strategy of forfeiting if you have 3 rounds and you qualified after 2, but since you can't guarantee qualifying on the first game, I mean, just as a matter of basic observation, there is no incentive to forfeit. So even the fact that you have a couple of games which you mentioned as forfeits, doesn't that just mean that that's something else? Somebody must have been injured or something. There must have been a good reason why they felt they had to withdraw at that stage. What does the econometric analysis add that isn't sort of, or am I just missing something here? Maybe I'm just missing something.
So the question is, what the econometric analysis already add to the descriptive statistics? Is this the question? I mean, of course, as you said, like, I think in round 3, there is clear evidence there is some strategic effort. This does not necessarily mean that all the forfait were meant to be strategic. And as you said, I agree that in the first 2 rounds, we have fewer observations with forfait, and most of them are due to reasons that are not related to strategic effort. Because as you said, I don't think it makes more sense. So if a team retires in the first games, usually is due to injury or because they didn't want to play. Because they didn't, I don't know, I don't know why, but maybe they were just not ready, or they decided they were too tired, or they were not physically ready to play the match. So they decide to start to try to play the second and third. But it was not, I mean, can be strategic, but I think it was more related to, let's say, fatigue and injuries.
I guess the prior question is in the new format with 2 qualification rounds.
Yeah.
Is there any conceivable motive to forfeit a game?
No, exactly. I don't think there is a strategic reason, because if you forfeit one of the 2 matches, it's really unlikely that you will advance in the position that you want. Because especially if you forfeit in the first matches, you means that you will play against the loser of the other matches, and then you probably can still compete for the 3rd position, probably, because the first 2.
So since there's no conceivable reason to forfeit, then what are you telling us with the econometrics about forfeiting? I mean, if we already know that there's no conceivable reason, then without knowing anything about the data, we know that there will be no forfeits after once you reform the system. Because again, the question is what does the econometrics add to that basic observation?
Yeah, understood.
May I get in?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, get in, Alex. Jump in.
I always like to speak with Stefan. So no. First of all, you are absolutely right. The idea to see the forfeits in old round and in old system and compared to new system is that forfeits are built probably from 2 elements. One is really injuries, and that's why teams don't show up. And on top of injuries, there is this strategic element. Now, if we look at the results only for round 1, but there's no reason to forfeit in both, basically, not before and not after, it's something like 0.03, like 0.04%. And if we look at elimination, where there's also no reason to forfeit, and this is more or less similar. That means that if in total we have something like 2.5%, part of it, which is something like 0.2, 0.4%, belongs to injuries. And on top of it, this is the strategic element, more or less. We can't be sure exactly, but that's how it looks like.
So
because we can't claim all the forfeits are because of strategic behavior. Of course, some of it is because of injuries. And we see that where there's no reason to retire, to forfeit, and you still do it, it's probably because of injury. And we see that this happens in the places where there's no reason to forfeit. It happens in 0.2, 0.4% of cases.
Okay, so what you're trying to say is you're trying to identify the difference in the old system, which were forfeits for strategic reasons and which were not. So it's the breakdown of forfeits in that
Yes.
case that's of interest.
Yes.
Not that there are no forfeits after the event.
Yes.
Right?
And we see it also in elimination, because in elimination, for sure, there's no reason to forfeit. And we still see some forfeits, and we attribute it to injury.
Okay, but then the difficulty with that is that in the new system you're playing fewer games, so injury is less likely to be a problem anyway, right? So
That's correct.
So
That's correct. But this is done just to show that if the story is injuries or more games, and because of that players have higher probability to be injured, then we would have seen in elimination stage difference in forfeits, but we don't see it before and after, which means that we go down to the kind of the natural level of injuries.
no, I don't see that. It's the not. Let Dennis jump in, and then I'll come back.
Yeah, and then you'll think about it.
I think, if I'm remembering right, after the group stage, there's still the playoff between the second and third team, correct?
Yeah.
In the new
No.
setting.
It's no. They take from all the 8 groups, 16 teams in the second and third positions, pull them together, and then draw from them the matches.
Right. So thinking about the 2-match setup, I'm matched against a really good team that I'm probably going to lose to in the first round. But if I come in second or third in the group stage, I'm automatically into the playoffs. So it doesn't matter if I lose this first match against a really good team. I'm going to be in the playoffs anyway if I beat the loser of the other round. So it seems to me that there is a situation where you would want to forfeit in the first round.
No. If you play against a really good team, this means that you are seed number 4 in the group. And this still means that there are 2 other teams that are better than you, on paper at least.
But you don't have to be doesn't have to be 1 versus 4, doesn't seem to me.
It's automatically 1 versus 4 in the first round in both cases.
I can imagine 2 versus 3 also being a situation where I go against 4th next round. Why not save my chance on injury in this match? I'm going to be second or third no matter what, as long as I beat the 4th place team.
And you're talking about before or after the change? New system?
After. Stefan's argument is there's no reason after the change to ever forfeit in the first round. And I'm saying I think there is, because if you can play the worst team in that second round match, then you avoid a game where you just are likely to get, or you could get injured, and you're still going to go into the playoffs for the elimination round.
I agree with you, and we as economists will understand the strategy here, but looking at the data, there is 0 such cases.
No, I understand, but your question, Stefan's argument was, why would this ever happen? And I'm saying it might happen.
It might.
And so your question is not simply about the injury story, but also there's still that strategic possibility that you forfeit in the first round.
Could be, but the problem, I'll tell you what's the problem with that. If you forfeit in the first round, you already have 0-21, 0-21, and then in the second round, you have to win really a lot to finish in this 3rd place. So I guess by forfeiting in the first round, you are actually out. Because even if you win, there will be 2 teams with 1 win and 1 loss, but you have much lower points ratio. So it makes no sense.
If
in such a case,
if there's 2 teams with 1 win and 1 loss, and 1 team with 2 wins, those 2 teams with the 1 win and 1 loss go into the playoff.
Ah, right. Sorry, you're right. I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. Sorry, my bad. Yeah, well, but that doesn't happen. I agree with you. There are incentives, but that doesn't happen. You're right. You're absolutely right.
Does in the old system, does every team that forfeits go through to the group stages? Is there any team that didn't go through?
Yeah, there are teams that forfeit after 0-2, and they are all out. There are teams that forfeit after 2-0, and they all go through. And we show that in 80% of cases, those with 2 zeros actually win in the next elimination stage.
Right. So in other words, there's nobody who. I mean, Dennis's point is that there's a sort of a speculative point. You know, you can gamble and play one game, and you might go through, you might not go through. So there'd be some expectation of progress. Whereas in the old system, the forfeits are all cases where it's 100% certain you're going through or 100% certain you're not going through. Right? There's nobody gambling in that sense, right?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, you are close to reality in that regard. Yes. It's not entirely correct because sometimes we have this data. Alessandro showed that in some cases you forfeit and you don't go through, but that's rare event.
And that's probably injury, right?
Yeah, could be. No. If you don't go through, that's just because you are in the 4th place. With 0-2, it's clear why you don't go through. But with 1-1, it can happen.
Injury. No, you forfeit because of injury. Right, that's what I mean.
Yeah, that could be.
I still don't see how, if you're trying to determine what proportion of forfeits are strategic in the old system, I'm still not sure I see how establishing that there are no forfeits in the new system helps you with that. Because it's the old system, it's a longer tournament, so you have more incentives to, based on the probabilities of injury, you have more incentive to forfeit for non-strategic reasons. And that's hard to take account of in the new system, right? Because that's...
Yes, but still, if the injury is the story, we would have seen difference in retirements during the match. Yeah, because we also show that there's no difference between retirements when they decide to start playing and then during the match somebody retires because of the injury. It's the same amount before and after. And in the elimination stage of tournament, so if fatigue plays a role and I'm injured because of fatigue, we would have seen more injuries in the old system because you played more games before compared to the new system. But there's no difference between forfeits in the elimination type of round. And this actually helps us to establish that in the round robin, there were strategic motives. The forfeits were driven by strategic things.
No, but I'd expect to see fewer withdrawals in the new system because they played one less game to get to the elimination stage.
That's fine. This is exactly what I'm saying. If the injury in the later, if the injury is a function of more games that you played before, which makes sense, right? So in the elimination, we would have seen difference in forfeits, that there will be more forfeits in the old system because they had to play 3 matches in the group stage and then in the elimination tournament. So we would have seen more forfeits in the elimination part of the tournament in the old system compared to the new, because in the old system they played more games, but we don't see it. So this is how we basically rule out the fatigue, the injury story. It's kind of a placebo test in a way. We have exactly the same tournament design after round robin, but in the old system, you take with you 1 game more. And if this has an effect on injury, we would have seen higher probability of forfeits in the old system compared to the new. But we don't see it.
Does anybody forfeit in the knockout stages then?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I said. This is basically kind of benchmark for injury for us. Do you have this elimination table with the effects?
This one, qualification elimination stage.
Basically 1-to-1. It's the same.
So, but there are 0 forfeits in the group stage with the new system. So.
Yeah, close to 0. Not 0, but close to 0. 0 point something. Basically, if we look at the forfeit in the elimination in the new system, it's 0.009. That is 0.9%. And in the new system, it's 0.4% if I look at the correct one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Maybe time for 1 or 2 more questions or comments for Alessandro and Alex. Go ahead.
Since no one has a question, I have a question which is not about the paper, but about how the sport works, because I'm curious in a sport where there are so many forfeits, or there were, how does the TV contract works and stuff, because you're a TV broadcaster and you pay for a number of matches or something, and the best players or the stars decide to forfeit or whatever. How did that work? And probably there was actually a change with the change of ruling, and maybe that was a motivation to actually change the rules. So yeah, I'm just curious about that, if you know something about it.
I have to go, Alex. So okay, I can go. Yes, the documentation is not so homogeneous. So we are trying to find information about the viewership. We know there might have been a fine to forfeit. We have found some information about a fine that was applied in 2016, 17, and is still going on. But about the effort, so players might receive a fine, but we don't know if the definition of forfeit given by the documentation is the same that we have given in the data, because there it says that forfeit is given without a valid reason, and here in our data it's appeared that they just didn't start the game. How it affect players? So it might affect players economically, but we don't still have an answer on that. How affect the broadcasting system? This I don't know. I don't have information. I don't know if Alex knows more, but
no, I don't really know, but I find it very good idea to reduce the number of matches in beach volleyball, because I'm not sure it's super it's a very attractive sport, but I'm not sure they really attract so much TV ratings and so on and so on. So they decided to make it more dynamic
fast.
And to reduce the number of matches. That's it.
Yeah, I think the main idea about the FIB is that they extend the number of tournaments played worldwide. So they are trying to have the best players playing more tournaments, or at least the best players spreads around different big tournaments, but each tournament has fewer matches. So I think they try to incentivize not to forfeit, because they want to have just few matches, with the not having like matches where the worst team play, but just have matches where good teams play and then they can advance, but you have the best team playing more games, more tournaments over the year. I think this is the main idea I got from what I have from the information and documents I found. Yes, Dennis has a question as well.
So this goes back to the question of participation. So the individual teams choose which tournaments to participate in. After the fact, I wonder if forfeits are more likely in less prestigious tournaments than in more prestigious tournaments.
So yeah, sorry.
And if you could compare that to beforehand, before the change.
Yeah, before I did these statistics, and before the change, most of the retirements were in the biggest tournaments, and not the fewest were in the middle. Let's say if we have like three like levels, the most were in the in the biggest, and in the lowest. After the change, we have far fewer forfeit, and they are spreads more evenly. So I think before there was a big incentive to maybe from worst team to deviate, or big team to deviate in big tournaments, especially because before the change, the monetary price of the Grand Slam were the highest in our data. So I think there was more strategic incentive, because the monetary price was so high that or you were really good and you wanted to save energy, or you were really bad and you didn't have a chance. And there probably teams exert more effort, try to reach the money price. This is my analysis that I got from the data.
Is there anything like an ELO rating for the teams to see if there's so you talked about the best teams and less teams.
Yeah, it's like tennis. They have entry points, so they receive points based on the final standing of each tournament. So every tournament, after each tournament, their entry and 6 points are updated based on the performance in the tournament. It's like tennis, I would say, more or less. So there is no ELO rating, but there are points.
Okay. My ignorance, I didn't know what entry points were. So
yeah, it's explaining in the previous paper. If you want, you can go to read.
Okay,
there.
Thanks.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Alessandro.
Thank you, James.
A lot of questions to field there, lots of discussion, which is always good to see. So thank you for provoking lots of discussion. And obviously wish you well as you proceed with your work. We will draw things to a close for this week. Next week we will be back. We will have j.j.reade from the University of Michigan presenting the cost of segregation using transfer marked values to model counterfactual outcomes in soccer. And just a reminder again, do consider submitting an abstract for the first Central Asian Conference in Sports Science. Deadline is on Sunday. Thank you very much, everyone. Good to see you. Look forward to seeing you again this time next week.
Ciao. Thank you.
Thanks, Alessandro. See you soon.
See you.